All right, thank you for being with us today for today's webinar with the National Science Foundation about their Regional Innovation Engines initiative. My name is Tim Hines. I'm the Executive Director of the University Economic Development Association. And as we have our attendees continue to filter in, we're just going to give you some brief overview of UEDA and who we are and what we're all about. So UEDA is we connect our members, higher education institutions, private sector businesses, and economic development organizations to resources that help facilitate economic growth within their communities. We're all about best practices, and our members represent those who are on the cutting edge of modern economic development. As everyone knows, our economy has evolved into something that behaves much differently than its predecessors, especially in recent years. So more than ever, we really need to have this kind of collaborative organization to bring about the best practices in higher education, economic engagement. And successes in our modern economy are all about innovation and entrepreneurship. So it's all about fostering talent in young folks and kind of thinking outside of that traditional academic and professional requirements that we're used to, and really working to advance our regions collectively. So never before has academia, the private sector, and economic stakeholders been so reliant on one another to create the economic opportunity that we need in order to advance our economies. So our members, UEDA members, really work together to expand economic opportunity within their communities and work with their stakeholders, leveraging talent innovation in place of those regions, and really recognizing the interconnectedness of each of these elements and how it helps regions grow. So we're really encouraged by our members and what they provide. And if you are interested in membership, we do have, of course, plenty of member benefits that I won't bore you with, but you can look at join.universityeda.org for more information, or you can reach out directly to me from the website, and I'd be happy to help you navigate anything that you might need to know about our organization. And that includes our networks. We have a talent innovation and place network, different network for each of those different topics. They convene at the times that you have on your screen there, and more information about our networks and the conversations that they have are on our website. So it's a great way to engage. You don't need to be a member to join our networks at our convenings, so please feel free to sign up for that. As well as we have a lot of other initiatives like our ARNI initiative with the EDA, where we have monthly convenings on that and conversations on the topics of equity, resilience, and the University Center program. So lots of ways to engage with UEDA. Our most pressing one, of course, is our Awards of Excellence program, which highlights best practices. So if you feel like you have a best practice in economic development, economic engagement in some way, please feel free to check out our Awards of Excellence program. 1 week left on that, and you can do so at awards.universityeda.org. And lastly, of course, our summit, which is taking place in San Antonio this coming October 9th through the 12th. We'll feature content and speakers from the EDA through our ARNI initiative, as well as plenty of other speakers throughout our higher ed economic development space, including the Awards of Excellence finalists and presenting their best practices to the public. So be sure you mark those dates down and join us for the summit. Early bird registrations being activated is active right now and ending here within the next month or so. So be sure to check that out. Before we get into me introducing our NSF team today, I do want to just provide a couple of housekeeping items. If you have any questions today, please use the Q&A function that is in the Zoom panel. If you need to chat with me for any reason, please do that with the chat function. So questions and answers, let's keep in the Q&A just so that we can keep track of those for our panelists today. And any technical issues or such, please reach out to me through the chat, and I'll be happy to help you navigate that. We'll be recording today's session, and it will be available in our UEDA channels within the coming days. So please watch for that. And for those unable to attend live, we thank you for watching the recording, and we'll get right into it. So many of you, I'm sure, on this webinar are familiar with the NSF, who they are, what they do, but really their goals are to promote the progress of science and advance national health, prosperity, welfare, to secure national defense, and so on and so forth. So important agency that a lot of times, at least from the University Economic Development side, we don't engage with a lot. And this is their regional Engines initiative is really something that is directly connected with our network, and felt that it was appropriate for the UEDA channels to hear all about the regional innovation engines and what they're doing to advance with that program. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the NSF team and ask them to turn on their cameras as appropriate. So we have Jeffrey Brown, who's program director with NSF, and Michal Zabel, who also is a program director with NSF. And I believe Jeffrey's going to kick it off for us today, but we also have a few other folks on the call who will join in later, Arali and Pradeep, and help us with some of the Q&A towards the end of the presentation today. So please, I encourage you to keep the Q&A active, and as you have questions, launch them in there. We'll definitely have time at the end to cover those. But without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and turn things over to Jeffrey and Michal.
Thank you very much, Tim. That was terrific. Let me get these things set up so I can see everything on my screen. So today, Michal and I will be talking about the NSF Regional Innovations Engine program. I actually suspect that many of you are familiar at some level with this program already, in the sense that there's been a fair amount of activity. We've done a lot of outreach events, but with universities and local business and economic development organizations. But we also want to talk about the new directorate a little bit, in which the Regional Innovation Engines program resides, because this Directorate, Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships, the TIP Directorate, is a directorate that you're likely to hear a lot from in your role as economic development agents for universities and others. And Pradeep and Arali are going to talk about another one of those programs briefly, the Convergence Accelerator, that is another cornerstone program or keystone program in the TIP Directorate. So the Engines team, which includes Michal and myself, also includes quite a few other people. We have both membership from within the Directorate, the TIP Directorate, and then we have a working group of members from across the agency. And I'll come back to that, because it's important to understand that the TIP Directorate is not like other directorates. It is a cross-agency directorate. So the only ones of this picture that are here with us today are myself and Michal. So this program, the Regional Innovation Engines program, has been announced through a broad agency announcement, which is somewhat unusual, although not unique for NSF. The usual route for NSF programs is through research.gov or Fastlane or grants.gov. And we intentionally made this decision to go through a broad agency announcement because of the nature of the program, which emphasizes partnerships across universities, across economic development organizations, across government. Because while the universities are very familiar with the grants.gov and research.gov, it wasn't clear that these other organizations that we wanted involved are really that familiar with things beyond the BAA mechanism. I want to point out that whatever we say, the BAA is binding. So if we say anything that in this webinar that's in conflict with the BAA, you're involved perhaps with some kind of development of a proposal for this BAA, then that takes precedence. That's the guidance for, or the law, so to speak, for this program. We're going to start, Michal and myself, with a brief overview of what TIP is, the Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships Directorate, and then we'll give an overview of the NSF Engines program. Now, we understand that probably a large fraction of this audience is somewhat familiar already with the NSF Engines program, so we're not going to go into the same depth that we went into in the public webinar, which is recorded and available online. We really want to use this to get everybody up to speed so we can have a conversation, a Q&A session at the end. So we have some common ground in which to ask those questions. We're also going to talk a little bit about how to get started and the application timeline for the Engines program. And then we're going to wrap up. Before we get to Q&A, Pradeep and Arali are going to talk about the Convergence Accelerator program a little bit. So the NSF is divided up into previous to the spring, 7 directorates and 2 offices. The directorates were more focused on specific areas of science. There's an engineering directorate, there's a social, behavioral, and economic sciences directorate, computer science directorate, and so forth. And then there were these 2 offices. The polar programs are in one office, and there was an integrated activities program. But these were, I won't say they were silos, because there's always been programs that are cross-directorate. But the new Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships Directorate is explicitly a cross-agency directorate as opposed to a program, and is working with the other directorates to develop programs that are more outward-facing than the traditional curiosity-sponsored research. That is a large but not exclusive fraction of what NSF does. And so the idea behind the TIP Directorate, which is the brainchild of Ponch, our director of the NSF, was to create a directorate that would look at both advancing critical and emerging technologies and societal and dealing with pressing societal and economic challenges, but also to accelerate the translation of research results from lab to market and society. That's really where it diverges a bit from the traditional directorates that focus on translation of research results from lab to market and society. The goals, of course, of TIP are to improve the U.S. competitiveness, to help grow the U.S. economy, and to train a diverse workforce of future high-wage jobs. If we look at how TIP integrates with existing directorates, its goal is to work as a partner to the existing directorates. So one sort of silo for this is fostering innovation and technology ecosystems, of which the Regional Innovation Engines program is the sort of cornerstone or keystone new initiative. And its goal then is to accelerate breakthroughs in key technology areas to grow long-term U.S. competitiveness, to lead to game-changing technologies and solutions that address societal and economic challenges. Along with that, TIP is working to establish translation pathways, ways in which to get research from the traditional directorates and from traditional curiosity-driven research into the market, into building new businesses. And finally, the third leg of this is partnering to engage the nation's diverse talent, to ignite partnerships with academia, industry, government, and nonprofits, to provide new opportunities to advance research, innovation, and education. Now, this is a diagram that we use and have used internally a bit to try to understand the difference. So we see the TIP Directorate as branching, as bridging between the use of public funds, the traditional things that NSF does, to self-sustaining things that use private funds. So examples of programs that were in cross-directorate programs that have moved into TIP are the SBIR, SCTR programs, or America's Seed Fund, the I-Core Innovation, NSF Innovation Core, and this new Convergence Accelerator. These are all programs aimed at bridging this gap between the public use of public funds for pure research or for curiosity-driven research to the point at which private funds can take over and drive innovation into the economy. What I'm going to move on to is talking about the NSF Engines program. So the big idea here, the big idea behind the Engines program is to help catalyze the creation of regional innovation economies across the United States. It's obvious you can think of some very key innovation economies, the Silicon Valley, Boston, those kinds of things, where there's been enormous growth in technology and enormous growth in the economy and huge job opportunities for the citizens of those areas. What the Regional Innovation Engines program is trying to do is to bootstrap that in other regions that have not benefited so much from the advances in technology. Along the way, in part of this bootstrapping process, the engines will advance critical technologies, address societal challenges. So these are the sort of topical areas that the Engines program will be addressing is science-based things that promote economic growth and job creation, cultivate regional talent, foster partnerships. I'm sorry, I have to take a drink. The program is ambitious. We'll be funding these engines with $160 million, up to $160 million for up to 10 years. This is these are large-scale grants, larger than most things NSF has done that were not infrastructure kinds of grants. But we're also in this first round of the engines program going to fund a number of smaller development awards. These would be $1 million for up to 2 years. The idea of the development awards is to help areas that are not really ready to compete for the full-fledged $160 million awards to get to the point where they could put together a competitive proposal at the end of 2 years. For both of these types of awards, we have concept outlines, which are essentially a white paper is one way to look at it, that's due June 30th. And they really are the sort of entry to continuing this process of building competitive engines proposal. What is an engine? An engine is a regionally centered multi-sector coalition of partners and stakeholders across industry. And we're serious about this multi-sector coalition of partners. It includes academia, it includes government, includes nonprofits, includes civil society, communities of practice, industry, nonprofits, for-profits, local government and government agencies, because we believe that it's necessary for all these groups to work together in order to build this regional innovation economy. And the idea is to drive R&D innovation to achieve regional economic growth and to build an inclusive ecosystem that will thrive for decades. So the funding is for 10 years, but success is going to be measured by creating things that are sustainable across a period long beyond the NSF funding. And so the idea is that this engine is providing the internal bootstrapping function to build this regional innovation economy or ecosystem. And if it's successful, we'll expect to see this grow over time. And at a certain point, of course, the NSF funding would go away, but we hope that the engine that is driving all this, the partnerships, the cross-sector alliances will continue long beyond the life of the innovation engine. One way to think about this is, if you think about growing an innovation economy, the NSF Engines program is providing the root and the sort of the core necessary to get this going. But we're looking for growth, growth out from this core, growth out from these roots, and R&D focused economic development. So external investments to do this, direct investments from startups, VCs, accelerators, all kinds of funds. And so this also plays well with what other US government agencies are doing. So you can see direct investment from the US Department of Treasury, private investors, and foundries and incubators, but we also see R&D focused economic development from Small Business Administration, Department of Commerce, and Department of Energy. So it's important to think of an RIE award as providing the core foundation for building something that is going to grow and last over time. So we can think of this in three ways. We want R&D innovation to achieve regional economic growth. So we need robust regional partnerships. We need use-inspired research and development to drive the creation of new businesses. We need a way to translate those R&D developments into practice. And we need comprehensive workforce development. We think of these last three bullets as sort of the three pillars of an engine: use-inspired research, translation of innovation to practice, and the workforce to support the growth of those businesses. But we also have other concerns. We want to build an inclusive ecosystem. We want it to thrive over time. So financial stability or sustainability is something we care about, and we're looking for ideas that will build sustainability in over the long haul. We think it's important that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility are true at all levels. We're looking for partnerships where there's true diversity across the leadership, across the partners, across the community and stakeholders. We're looking for ways to build community wealth. So when you look at the BAA, if you look at the BAA, you'll see that while there's a lot of flexibility built into the program, there are some key things. There's some structures that we're looking for in the engine. We're looking for strong leadership teams, and we're looking at ways to have accountability through an evaluation process. So these are all things to think about in the long haul. So engines are expected to accomplish this. I mentioned these three core functions. So this is maybe a little repetitive, but it's important to get this down. Use-inspired research and development. So we're looking for engines that are focused on solving some national and societal challenges that meet the needs of a diverse set of stakeholders in the region in which the engine would exist, and build or try to fill limits and gaps in current research. So that's the use-inspired research. So the idea is that the R&D is in service of some problem, but is also in service of the region that the engines will reside in. We're looking for ways to translate to practice. And when we say translation to practice, we mean creating startups, creating small businesses, expanding existing businesses by developing new technologies and innovations. And then the third pillar, comprehensive workforce development. We're looking for regional activities that build the workforce that's needed to support this innovation engine. And that includes at all levels. That includes at the highest level researchers, but at the general level in terms of technicians, practitioners, community members. We're looking for education necessary to sustain this over time. The last little blue bullet here, or box here, calls out robust regional partnerships. For an engine to succeed, we, the team that in NSF that are working on this program, believe that you really need a robust set of partners, trusted partners, who are co-designing this engine and who have responsibilities across the engine and are working together. So, and that means at all levels. That means universities, it means two-year institutions of higher education, it means businesses, it means nonprofits, it means local government, it means incubators, it means venture capital. We need all of these players to pull together, and they need to all be true partners in this. The other thing we need is that we need a model that is sustainable over time. So in some ways, even though 10 years it sounds like a long time, and $160 million may seem like a long time, it really is just the bootstrapping for this process. Over this 10-year period, we're looking for teams that can grow the funding, that can bring in additional resources. We're looking for a broad culture of innovation. I mentioned we're looking for diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility at all levels. And we are interested in community wealth building coming out of this. So at the end of the award period, we expect that these engines that NSF has funded have built a sustainable topic area, a sustainable ecosystem in the topic area. So from the very outset, they have to consider strategies and plan for securing and sustaining capital to a region of service to increase the resources over the award period. And I think I'm going to move on because I would like to have time for Q&A. Let me just point out that we're very flexible in terms of the model. These are just 4 different models. Every engine's proposal has a lead institution or a lead organization, but that lead organization could be a corporation, could be a university, could be a consortium of colleges, it could be a new cross-sector entity. And these lead organizations help manage or work with a group of core partners. Those partners can include organizations from all different sectors. And then there might be partners that are outside of the core partners. These are typically ones that are not receiving direct funding, but are important partners in growing this ecosystem. So I'm going to hand this over to Mihal, who's going to talk about how to get started.
Sure, thank you. All right, so we're going to just bring out a few pieces for getting started. You want to go forward here? So a little bit about the topic area, region of service, how we're defining the maturity level of the regional ecosystem, and a bit about the proposal types. So the first area is that the proposing teams will need to determine what the appropriate topic area is for their proposed engine. And the piece to consider here is that we're looking, as Jeffrey had stated, for the topics to be around national or societal challenges, but driven by the regional capabilities. So of course, the academic institutions that are there, the businesses, and where the region sees itself going. So both what its strengths currently are and where it sees itself trying to go. We intentionally did not position these around developing a certain type of technology. And instead, you can think of these topics as being the use cases within some kind of sub area. And then various technologies would be developed along the way, and developing startups, having the use-inspired research and all of those pieces. In terms of the region of service, there's a lot of flexibility in how teams want to determine their region of service. It can be a single metropolitan area. It can be, it could be several of them together. It can cross state boundaries. And we're really going to be looking for teams to determine what makes sense in terms of what their topic area is, in terms of the kind of regional economic growth of that area, and then determine who should be part of it. Right, okay, that's all I'll say for there. So the way that the program is envisioning the maturity level of these innovation ecosystems is we think of this as a 5-phase model. So the development, nascent, emergent, growth, and mature. So mature, you can imagine, as Jeffrey stated earlier, some of those areas that really are thriving on their own, and we could probably all figure out what those areas are. Maybe there's 2 or 3 of them across the country. The development is the space that is not quite ready yet to actually get a large infusion of funds and really be an engine, and but really sort of prepping to become an engine or become an innovation ecosystem. And then the nascent phase then is that early stage of that ecosystem, and then kind of moving forward. And so if we go, and within the BAA, we list it a little bit further, especially in Appendix A, what those some of those characteristics are from the perspective of the program, kind of broad characteristics. So the program is looking to fund 2 types of awards in this first round. So the first one are these large awards that would actually be the engines. So they're called our type 2 awards, and those are the up to 160 million, up to 10 years, that would take teams that are starting in either the nascent or emergent phase and take them through the growth phase. And then presumably after that amount of funding, then they would be able to be self-sufficient. If teams are not ready yet for that stage, then we have this other phase called, or other award called development, which is for up to $1 million, up to 2 years to build the team, essentially that capacity building. Okay. And then a bit about the application timeline. So there's 3 steps to submitting the application. So we have a concept outline, then the letter of intent, and then the full proposal. And so the deadline to be most aware of right now is the concept outline, because that deadline is coming up fast. It's in maybe about 3 weeks from now, for both the type 1s, which were those development awards, and the type 2s, which are for the actual engine awards. And within the concept outlines, these are either 2 pages for the type 1s, 5 pages for the type 2s, and they're to really tell us what the team is interested in centering their team around, who the partners would be, what the topic area is, what the region of service is, and justifying it. If a team is interested in moving forward to a full proposal, they need to have submitted a concept outline. There is opportunity to change the ideas, but if you want to be part of the program, then you need to submit a concept outline. there's a couple of things that we're doing to try for teaming purposes. And so we really want these the proposals, the full proposals, to really be from regions and for areas that are close to each other, to not really be competing against each other, and instead to put forward a strong proposal together. So one piece is that we are going to be publishing all of the concept outlines as we made publicly available, so that teams can contact each other and find out, what else other teams across the country are looking to propose. And then the other piece is that any teams who submit a concept outline will be invited to what we're calling Proposers Day, with a large focus on teaming, which will be held around August 1st. And then the other two stages are that letter of intent and the full proposals. We are expecting that those Type 1 development awards will be awarded around mid-March, and we'll be having a relatively large number of them, about 50, with a much smaller number for those full engine awards, maybe around 5, depending on what is submitted and how they are reviewed. Okay, so we have, you can access, here's several important links over here. So we have our FAQs on our website. You can access, of course, the BAA that tells you all the details. Very importantly, also from our website, you can access our full webinar and the previous Q&A sessions with the team. You can schedule office hours to meet with members of our team to ask more specific questions for your team.
Thank you, Michal. So Pradeep, would you like to share your screen and talk about the Convergence Accelerator a little bit? Pradeep, are you there? I think we're having some technical difficulties here.
No, we're good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can you can see my view, perhaps, I hope.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'll make this brief, very brief. So I'm joined here by my colleague Orali Dade, who is a program director. Orali, thanks for joining. And Tim and everybody else in the audience, we thank you for this opportunity. And since between Mikhail and Jeffrey, they have covered the TIP, the new directorate very well. I'll just point out to you that Convergence Accelerator program is part of one of the TIP programs, or one of the offices in the new directorate. We are focused, as you can see, on two main things. These are the two distinguishing features for the Convergence Accelerator. So the first one is that we are looking for, again, use-inspired research. And in our case, we require convergence between different disciplines. And our focus is, again, on outcomes which are tangible, which could be potentially deployed. Not necessarily, we are not looking for commercialization, but something that is going to lead towards commercialization, or if it's a nonprofit, tools that could be deployed in a community, something people can actually use, right? So something that's going to be useful to the society, right? So this is the team for Convergence Accelerator. The team is being led by Doug Mon, and there are several colleagues. Laura Orali is, of course, here along with me. And please feel free to reach out to me or Orali or Doug, and we can connect you with anybody that you would like to talk to and learn a little bit more about this. So what exactly is convergence research, right? And again, please remember that we are talking about not basic fundamental research. We are talking about research that would require merging of ideas to really tackle problems that are too difficult to be tackled by one discipline. So that's where the convergence piece actually comes in. So there could be people in sciences, in engineering, could be in social sciences, could be in healthcare, and we want partnerships. So another key requirement for Convergence Accelerator is really requiring partnerships that could be with industry. The projects, just like Jeffrey mentioned about the engines program, Convergence Accelerator is actually the first program ever at NSF that actually was announced through a broad agency announcement. And again, just like Jeffrey mentioned before, the reason for that is we want industry to be able to lead these projects. So the funding in terms of our approach to this could actually go directly to industry. And then of course they could have academic partners. So we are looking for strong partnerships with including but not limited to nonprofits, private sector, economic development agencies, you name it. And as long as the partnerships make sense for the particular project. So once again, what are some of the distinguishing features or characteristics of the Convergence Accelerator program? We are looking for very clear goals, very clear milestones, and we are looking for use-inspired research that would lead to some tangible outcomes in an accelerated period of time. And I'll explain what that accelerated frame of time means. And I'll also explain the structure of the program very briefly. So what we begin with is, again, the program is a grounds up program. So the way we come up with topics, the funding opportunities, is we request communities to really tell us what they think are ideas that are ready for translation, as well as that require very strong convergence. And of course, there is a societal need that is currently unmet that could be met with this particular program, right? So this is what we are looking for, and this is how we get these ideas from the community. Then within NSF, we make a determination as to which ideas do not replicate what's been happening, what we have already supported, what are some of the other programs supporting. And based on that, we announce a track or a topic, and I'll come to this in a second. But once these topics are announced, then there is a competition after the ideation phase. We invite phase 1 proposals. These proposals could be funded at a level of up to $750,000 million over a period of 9 months. And this is where the teams actually consolidate their strategy. They, of course, start to work on their low fidelity prototype. So again, moving in an accelerated pace towards a tangible outcome or a set of outcomes. So, and teams are coached very actively throughout. Okay, so teams are coached in terms of, how can they take their idea towards commercialization or wide-scale deployment? What does it take to make that happen? Startups, entrepreneurship, those kinds of things. So they are coached. There is a very active engagement, and that's a requirement for this. And then some of these teams compete, all of these teams compete again till they go to phase 2. And phase 2 is where the actual real action is, where they will be working for 2 years and they get up to $5 million. And this is done through a cooperative agreement mechanism, while as the phase 1 is a NSF grant. Okay, so again, this is the kind of the flow of the program. Tim, I'm going to be able to share these slides with you, so I won't go through these here in detail. And then here is some of the tracks that we are funding currently. These are active programs, tracks A, track B, track C. These are just the names for the track. For example, track C, something that I'm leading, has to do with quantum technology. And as you can see, they are all over in terms of the coverage of these areas. So we are completely agnostic to what areas that we are going to be supporting. As long as they are ready, they require strong convergence. That means very strong interdisciplinary, deep level connections between disciplines. And in fact, if I can request Orali to maybe briefly, Orali, if you don't mind, just describe to them what your track on network blue economy is. I think that will be great if you can just take a minute to just kind of give them a flavor for what that is like.
Sure. Yeah, the networked blue economy focuses on sustainable solutions related to both oceans and major bodies of water. rivers and the Great Lakes are included. There are solutions across the spectrum, some that are obviously going to be commercialized because they need to be scaled up and gotten into the hands of consumers. Others that may end up being picked up by a consortium, for example. And we have partners on the teams all the way from startups, universities, NGOs, up to big companies like Google and Siemens involved. So the track is right now competing to go to phase 2. So we're this month reviewing their phase 2 proposals.
Perfect. Thank you, Rory. And so these are the tracks, the one that you see above, A through F, those are the programs that are already in place. Track G, Track H, which has to do with persons with disabilities. I'll just talk about it just for a very short time. These are the tracks that we just announced. So this is an open funding opportunity right now. So just to give you a flavor for the Convergence Accelerator, one of the tracks that I'm leading now has to do with assistive rehabilitative technologies that could be developed for persons with disabilities. So if you look at areas of advanced materials, you look at 3D printing, advanced manufacturing, you look at soft robotics, you look at machine learning, AI, there are a number of technologies that can be brought to bear to assist or help persons with disabilities. We currently have almost 15 to 20% of the US population and about 1.2 billion people around the world. They live with some form of disability. And where there is an economic opportunity is that we are not seeking solutions only to help and assist persons with disabilities, but also how do we help them get back into workforce, right? And Jeffrey talked about the need for diversity in the workforce. So there are tremendous economic opportunities, and I'll be happy to share with you by including more people with who are persons with disabilities. So Jeffrey, that is the kind of brief introduction to Convergence Accelerator. Please join our expo. I'll be sharing these view graphs. That's on July 27th and July 28th. Great opportunity to learn. You're on mute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to hand it back to Tim, and he's going to moderate the rest of it. So let's all stay on to answer questions.
Great, thanks. And yeah, Pradeep, if you don't mind, stop sharing your screen, and we'll open things up to questions, and everyone can see everyone's faces full screen. Thanks. So we do have a couple questions, and we'll start with the definition of community wealth building. What does that look like? Do you have some examples of that? Supporting declining municipal revenues and increasing expenditures, or what are you specifically looking for there?
Well, okay, that opens up a broader question, which is how are we going to evaluate this? The regional innovation engines are going to be cooperative agreements, which means that they're going to be negotiated between the awardees and the NSF. And so things like metrics for success or community wealth building are things we're going to agree on together. There's not one set of metrics, I think, that you could use across the country that makes sense. And different RIEs are going to start from different places. So what looks like great growth in one area might seem like modest growth in another. So I'm sorry to be so vague about it, but this is really, we're going to want to hear from the teams what that means in their region. So
I assume that, these are going to be, really looked at region by region, very region specific. So, we have one question about usefulness, and, how is that going to be evaluated or measured? Is, same answer, or, anything that So we're looking for the teams to build the case. So in the proposal phase, to build a case for why the research, the use-inspired research matters, what is pulling that research? Usually curiosity-driven research is more push. You come up with ideas, you work through them, and you try to push it out in the marketplace. In this case, the case has to be built for why the problem matters or why the topic matters societally, but also why it matters to the region. And one reason it might matter to the region is that the sort of core structures are in place, the university, the
the businesses that could exploit that research. So that might be a good reason for choosing it for that region. So again, we're looking for the case being built by the awardees. I'm going to pass the next question to Michal, no matter what it is.
All right, then it's a tough one. There's a bias of academic review panels towards academic projects, pursuit of novelty, of pursuit of utility. How will utility of proposed projects be measured? Or what controls are in place to ensure this program doesn't just produce more fundamental curiosity-driven projects? I know that gets kind of into the usefulness discussion, but can you elaborate on that anymore?
Well, sure. So actually, I can answer this. So we have a variety of programs across NSF that go beyond just the research and really into impact, into economic impact, into community impact, whatever that impact is. And in all of those programs, the approach that we take, and it's going to be the same one that we take here, we will want to have our panels reflect the composition of the teams that are proposing. So, our panels are made up of the experts across whatever is being proposed. And what we have done in many programs is we put out panelist questionnaires, we send it out really broadly, and we make sure that we are getting reviewers who have the expertise in this wide range of areas that we're looking for. And that provides us that holistic perspective that we are going to need.
Great. Yeah. And speaking of process, the concept outlines and having folks review those and encouraging collaboration. Is that something that NSF has typically done before? And if not, what prompted this change, and any lessons learned there in the past, or anything you hope to learn from this as a model for trying to spawn collaboration?
So I'm not sure that I can speak to how many times this has been done. I'm sure that there are cases where something similar to this has been done. It's not typical because when teams typically submit, it's confidential. So we have put in their content telling teams that this will be made publicly available, so they can decide then what they want to put in there, and if they want to submit to this, knowing that it's going to be made publicly available. What we're really trying to get at here is making sure that we don't have duplication in a region, and that teams that should really be working together know who else is out there, so that they can join together.
I want to add a little bit to that. It's very selfish on our part, because what we want are the strongest proposals possible. And we strongly believe that means cross-sector collaboration. And so we're doing everything we can to try to make that cross-sector collaboration really happen. And so the concept outlines are aimed at doing that, or at least being one of the tools in making that happen.
And will that all happen organically, or is that something that, will you try to position anyone or make suggestions for any collaboration?
So now you're getting into an area where we have to be careful. We don't ever try to tell people whether an idea is a good idea or a bad idea. We try to tell them what are the requirements, or what are things we're looking for. And similarly, we would not be in the position of saying that two teams should work together. We're trying to put the information out there and provide opportunities for them to communicate with each other. But it would be a step too far for us to actually say these two teams should work together.
Okay.
And let me just add one more piece over there. What we're also trying to avoid is for a region to say, we don't really know how to work together. We have these two topics that are similar, and we're just going to throw it out there and let NSF decide. We really don't want that to happen. We want the teams to think strategically for themselves.
That sounds good. And thinking about the applications themselves, can an institution or organization or consortium apply for both a type 1 and a type 2, or multiple submissions for differing ideas?
So you can submit as many concept outlines as you like, but a single organization can be the lead on only one proposal. Now, lead means something different than the usual NSF grant, because the lead organization does have responsibility for providing the key leadership and financial responsibility for managing an award. But it doesn't mean that they're in charge of everything. We're really looking for evidence of partnerships of equals, of co-created work. So you can be a partner, an organization can be a partner on multiple proposals, but they can only be the lead on one.
Okay. That sounds good. That's all the questions that we have today. So I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll definitely get everything posted. Oh, one more came in. Is there a path for a type 1 to turn into a type 2 in the future? If so, what would that path and timeline look like?
So we expect there'll be additional BAs with, I don't like the word competition, but opportunities to apply for type 2 awards. We're not at the moment thinking we'll do another round of type 1s, because they're really there to help bootstrap the process. You can see you can see from what Michal said that we're looking at making up to about 50 of those. So we're expecting a fairly large number of type 1 awards. And what we hope is in that 2-year period that they really build a strong team and build a strong proposal. It's not a preliminary research grant. It's a team building grant. It's the best way to look at it. In fact, if you look at the BAA, you're not supposed to use that $1 million for preliminary research. It's really to build the leadership, to build the partnerships, to put it, maybe to do the design of workforce development that you might want to do, to build strong proposals. So yes, our plan is to have multiple rounds of type 2s and just this one round of type 1 funding.
Okay, sounds great. So yeah, I want to thank you all for being with us today, sharing about the different initiatives and what's happening at NSF. Definitely have that June 30th deadline for concept outline circled on our calendars. Of course, before that, there's an Awards of Excellence deadline that we have at UEDA. So lots of deadlines around us all, but hopefully folks can take advantage of all of them. If you have any further questions, I know that we'll be posting this recording on our YouTube channel and other places, as well as the slide deck. So thank you all for being with us, both NSF team as well as our participants today. And we'll catch you at the next webinar. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.